Have you ever considered that the most profound peace is often found not in the clamor of wealth, but in the quiet whispers of nature? In places where life is simple, yet thoughts can soar. Let us enter a story where the majesty of the mountains and the unyielding spirit of a family weave a remarkable saga of hope. In the forgotten village of Unylelding, nestled between ancient peaks and a singing river, life was woven from simple threads. The turning of the soil, the rising of the sun, and the quiet contentment of hard work. For young Ilara and her family, this simple life was their entire world. Her father Thane was a man of the earth, his strength etched into the lines on his face. Her mother, Maeve, was the heart of their home, her hands skilled in gardening and crafting small wooden figures. Together with Ilara's younger brother, Finn, they were a unit bound by love and the shared reality of a life lived on the edge of sufficiency. This year, however, the rhythm of their lives was shattered. The monsoon, usually a life-giver, arrived with a relentless fury. Day after day, a weeping sky turned their fields into a swamp of mud and broken stalks. The river, their friend, became a churning torrent, consuming their land and their future. When the rains finally ceased, the devastation was absolute. Their entire crop, the sustenance they depended on for the year, was gone. A heavy, oppressive silence fell over their small cottage, thicker than the morning fog. Ilara watched her parents, saw the stoic pain in her father, eyes, and the forced cheerfulness in her mother, smile, and felt the weight of their world settle on her own shoulders. Desperate to escape the gloom, she climbed the rickety ladder to their small, dusty loft. It was a space of forgotten things, smelling of dried herbs and old wood. There, tucked in a dark corner, she found a large carved wooden chest. It had belonged to her grandmother, a woman whose skill as a weaver was village legend. With a grunt of effort, she opened it. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed linens, was a disassembled loom and a collection of leather-bound journals. As Ilara carefully turned the fragile pages, she realized it was more than a diary. It was a complete record of a lost art. Her grandmother had not used ordinary wool, but had spun thread from the wild heart of Unylelding itself. The tough fibers of the silver nettle, the soft down of the milk thistle. The journals held meticulous recipes for creating vibrant dyes from elderberries, onion skins, and river clay. To weave is to listen, one passage read. The thread is not something you make, it is a story you help the land to tell. A thrill shot through Ilara. This was a path forward, a thread of possibility spun from the very land that had just failed them. The next morning she set out, following her grandmother's maps to the riverbank. The work was harder than she could have imagined. Processing the nettle fibers left her hands raw and aching. Her first attempts to spin a consistent thread were clumsy failures, resulting in nothing but tangled, useless messes. Doubt began to creep in. "Ilara," Thane said one evening, his voice gentle but laced with practicality. "This is noble work, but it is the work of a season we cannot afford. We need food now, not threads for a loom that has slept for 50 years. His words stung because they were true. Recognizing she needed guidance, Ilara went to see Gareth, the village elder. He had known her grandmother and possessed the deep, calm wisdom of the mountains. He took the tangled fibers she offered. "You are trying to command the fibers," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You are forcing them. Your grandmother! She would listen to them. She would persuade them. Patience, child. The land does not rush, and neither can its stories." With this new understanding, Ilara returned to her work. She slowed down, her movements becoming mindful. She began to feel the subtle language of the fibers, and slowly, a consistent, strong thread began to emerge from her spindle. Her next step was color. Following a recipe, she gathered elderberries and created a dye bath. When she rinsed the thread, she gasped. It had transformed into a breathtaking shade of deep indigo. This small success felt like a miracle. With her mother's help, she reassembled the old loom. Soon, its rhythmic clack filled their cottage, a sound of industry and hope. A pattern emerged under her fingers, an intricate design of their winding river and misty mountains. Finally, she cut the finished piece from the loom. It was a shawl, light but incredibly warm, its colors flowing into one another like a dream. It was more than cloth, it was the story of their home. The decision was made. Elara and her father would journey to Silverwood Market, a bustling town a day's walk away. They arrived to a chaotic explosion of sound and color. They found a small space and laid out their single shawl and 2 smaller pieces. Hours passed. Merchants with bright, machine-made goods drew all the attention. Just as they were packing up, defeated, a woman stopped. She was dressed simply but elegantly, her eyes holding a keen light. She reached out and touched the shawl. "Where did this come from?" she asked. Elara found her voice and told the entire story of the journals, the nettles, the elderberries, and the loom that had slept for 50 years. The woman listened, her gaze rapt. "In a market full of noise," she said, her eyes shining, "this is a song." She was an artist, a traveler searching for things of true beauty. She bought the shawl for a price that made Elara's breath catch in her throat, more money than their family had seen in a year. Then she placed an order for 5 more. The journey home was joyous. When they walked back into Ethelred, holding the pouch of coins, a cheer went through the village. That single sale was a catalyst. Elara did not hoard her knowledge. Remembering Gareth's wisdom, she began to teach the other village women. Soon, the quiet hum of looms echoed from half a dozen cottages. They formed a cooperative, creating textiles that became sought after for their authenticity. Their lives were transformed, not into extravagance, but into stability. There was always enough food. Thane bought better seeds, and the next harvest was bountiful. The village was not rich in coin, but it was rich in spirit, in community, and in the dignity of meaningful work. They had risen from poverty, not by chasing wealth, but by rediscovering the simple, profound value hidden in their own land. Just like Elara and the villagers of Ethelred, you too hold the power to shape your destiny. Unlock your full potential and achieve true mastery in life. Subscribe to Kai's Mindset Mastery for more inspiring stories and transformative insights. Don't just dream, achieve.